All right, so I think we will go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. So this is Illini Aero Connections. This session is called Unknown Trajectories. So this program was started as a way to connect our alums and our students, and for our students to learn in a professional development series directly from our alums and cover some topics that maybe aren't always covered in the classroom. So Samantha McHugh is an AE alum who has helped develop this program, and she'll be moderating for us tonight. And Laura Gerhold is also online with us. I think everyone probably knows Laura. She has also helped develop this program, and she'll be working behind the scenes with me today. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Samantha and let her begin.
All right, cool. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited about this session. This is one of my favorites because I think when you're in school and you have a track in your mind of where you're going to go, you get out of school and about 3 months later, your whole life changes, right? You go to the real world and you learn the real things, and all of a sudden you have all these new ideas about what to do, and you find your way into aerospace or out of aerospace. But it's hard to have that vision when you're in school and you're kind of, just tunnel visioned in that academic environment. So I think this is gonna be really fun. And we have 3 people that are different this year from who we had last year for the Unknown Trajectories session. So I'm just gonna kick it off by letting them give you a quick background of who they are, what their education was, kind of what career path they've had and where they are now. And we'll kick it off with Anil.
All right. Yeah, so my name is Anil Muhammad. I did my BS in aerospace with Samantha. So we both graduated together in 2012. Then I did my MBA from the Foster School of Business in 2018 in Seattle, Washington. And I guess in terms of my jobs, I actually did an internship with Sam at NASA. We did about like a 7-month internship in Houston, Texas, working on inflatable habitats. From that, came back for my last semester at UIUC, and I took a full-time job at Boeing, where I moved to Seattle for about 8.5 years. And I worked on new airplane design. So if you've heard of the airplane called 777X, I helped design the wing for it for about 5 years. And I worked on a new airplane that never made it off the sheets, but was a concept. Then I did some military work as well. While I was going to school too for my MBA, I kind of pivoted. As an engineer, I love numbers and math. So, drew me a lot to finance and accounting electives during my MBA. So I started kind of like a fintech startup with my brother, pivoted, came back to Chicago. Now I'm a vice president here at JPMorgan, and I manage all of, Zelle within the company for wholesale payments. Yeah, brief intro.
All right, so thanks. I guess I'll go on with my own. So I'm Jack. I started at the U of I fall 2016 as a freshman in aerospace engineering, and I would go on to graduate May 2020, not all that long ago, with my bachelor's as well as a minor in poli-sci. So after graduation, I started my career at Mitsubishi Logisnext Americas. It's part of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, where I still work as a quality engineer. And then in the last few months, I've transitioned to a mechanical design position, still within the same company. Basically, we're a total solutions provider that offers scalable products and services. It's like, material handling equipment from 3,000 to 25,000 pound capacity, and a couple of different brands, CAT, Unicarrier, Barrett, Mitsubishi, much of which is manufactured right here in Illinois, up in Northern Illinois, Marengo, where I'm actually from, and also in Houston, Texas. So some of my hobbies are working on heavy and agricultural equipment, welding, fabrication, shooting, and of course, working on Facebook Marketplace finds.
All right, hi, my name is Kaitlin Stuckler. I graduated from Illinois in 2014 with my BS in aerospace. I worked for Cummins for 7 years. If you're not familiar, they're a Fortune 150 global company that provides power solutions, engines and batteries, and a host of other things. Just this year, I left Cummins and moved to Southern Indiana, where I work for an electronic manufacturing services company, 2,000 or 3,000 employees. So it's a lot different. of a culture. Yeah, so I'm here in Southern Indiana, and I put it on my bio, but I sent it super late. In my spare time, I work as a farmhand on my on my husband's family farm.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. I think we'll kind of jump right into what all of you touched on. But what I'd like to get into is specifically the position you're in right now. It's not necessarily a direct aerospace position. How did that transpire? And I'm particularly curious about like, how did you feel about it? Like, were you sad or scared to leave aerospace? Was it easy to do? Did you have to do it? Give us a little bit of background on how that transition went to your current position. And Anil, we'll kick it off with you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a lot packed in there. I guess the way I'll start it off is when I was 4 years old, I always knew I wanted to be an aerospace engineer. That was like my goal, my dream, everything. I achieved it, right? And as I was doing it, I was at Boeing, which is where I wanted to work forever, right? That's my dream job too. And then I don't know if something really prepped me for it or not, but it was more of when I was doing my MBA, I just noticed, right? Like I mentioned that in the past, I just love numbers and math. And then when I saw this whole new world of accounting, finance, I was like, hey, this is something interesting that's out there too, that uses similar skills like analytical skills and things like that. So I kind of got more into that, got exposed to the fintech world. I came from an entrepreneurial family too. So I wanted to get my kind of feet wet in that, started a company with my brother, did that for 4 years. And while I was, self-sustaining, I was like, okay, I did space, I did, planes, I did military, what's next, right? What is that opportunity for me to grow? So I knew I wanted to kind of shift my career. I kind of was done with aerospace at that moment, after almost 9 years. But I didn't really have all the skills necessary. So, I try to take a lot of my startup knowledge and I kind of applied it as, stakeholder management or more software product management roles. And I kind of pivoted in that direction because it was kind of in line with my design engineering role at Boeing, where I was, managing a product, working with a bunch of stakeholders. So I was trying to translate that skills. But at the same time, I wanted to change jobs and careers. So I was very scared. I mean, aerospace was everything I knew. I was a go-to guy for that wing. I mean, people knew me. I knew what I was doing. When I was switching, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to like finance. I'm going back home to Chicago. Like, it was totally different. I was scared out of my mind. But, it's a leap of faith I had to take. And I mean, I'm glad I did it. It kind of exposed me to a lot of different opportunities that I didn't know existed. And now I just don't know what to do next. But it was very scary. So no doubt about that. So that's my experience.
Okay, so I have a little bit of a different background. I never actually, worked in the aerospace industry, right? I graduated. I guess you could say I got my current position by luck. Some of it good, but some bad. So I graduated in May 2020, which was right about 2 months into the COVID-19 pandemic. So unfortunately, the career I thought I had as a design engineer got a little bit derailed, and another one opened up much closer to home for me. And that probably was not a bad thing, right? I'm working at now the only, big company in my little town. But I think I ended up in, the field I'm in, right? Because the similarities, kind of like what Anil was mentioning, are very strong. Whether you're, a design engineer on, trucks, forklifts, trains, or planes. I mean, until you get a real high level, leader or something, you're working on, small components and, projects that aren't, that aren't necessarily, distinct or unique, that your education only prepared you for one or the other. And I think there's a lot of different opportunities that, can grow from that. And once you get into a company, you start kind of growing and exploring. And I'm very early on this path, Anil and Kaitlin are much further on it, but, I've already transitioned roles in less than a year. So I think that's something nice. Once you start feeling out, you might not know, right, what you like, but you learn pretty fast. And that's a good opportunity to have.
All right. So I've, similar to both Jack and Anil, I wasn't 4, but I was in 8th grade when I chose to be in aerospace engineering. We did a class trip to Huntsville, Alabama, to space camp, and I thought it was the coolest ish I had ever seen. because it is. It's still very cool. And so at the ripe old age of 13, decided, yeah, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to go be an astronaut. I want to go, go work for NASA. But as I went through college, I realized it wasn't just like the space aspect so much as all the problem solving involved and the technology and the fixing stuff and figuring stuff out that I really liked. As a sophomore, I got an internship with Cummins. And so that was also a really good thing of like, oh, I like this company. I'm in Creo doing modeling every day. This is fun to me. I like these people. I like this culture. I'm from Illinois, so it was only 3 hours from home. Being close to my family was really important. And so it was just a very easy, like, I'm not going to change my major because I don't want to take longer in school. But it was just kind of like a glide over. It's like, oh no, this is actually where my interests lie. Later, I was able to, senior year, I took an ag engineering course on tractors. I think Laura helped me get into that one. Thanks a bunch. And that was really good. That like really useful in my next career. Yeah, so I wasn't scared. It wasn't like, oh, I'm abandoning. It's like, you were 13. You're allowed to change your mind. That's okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so you guys touched on it a little bit, but I'm interested in some specific examples of, what you took from your 4 years in aerospace or 5 years or however much time you were there and you directly applied to your job today. And I think sometimes it's really hard to conceptualize, like, what is an engineer doing every day, right? Because we're not doing homework and tests and studying ideas. So if you can maybe give us some concrete examples of like some tasks you work on a daily or weekly basis and how you feel like you do them better or you excel at them because of some things that you learned at University of Illinois and AE.
Yeah, I can start off. Yeah, I think there's few skills, right? As an engineer, you learn a lot of analytical skills, right? So just numbers, what do you do with numbers, how to make sense for numbers. And that applies to literally any role, any job, anything you do, right? Because right now with the whole world, it's very data centric. So you have to use data to your own advantage. And if you can make sense with it, even the better, right? So, I mean, that's one that I use, from my engineering days, startup days to even, my current role at JPMorgan. And another one is like at UIUC, right? You work on a senior design project. So that kind of opens you up to more of the leadership mindset, right? Like I was on the same team as Sam, it's like, how do you work with Sam? Sam's a, different person. She has different wants, likes, what is she going to work on this project? What am I going to work on? What is someone else going to work on? So just, having that team collaboration effort, just learning from each other, I like to say, how to make everyone happy or maybe everyone equally unhappy, so you learn those kind of skills over there too. Yeah, and that kind of translates to what, you do as an engineering team too, whether you're designing a wing, a tractor, anything, you work together, cross-functional teams, one may be in structures, one may be in, electronics or things like that, but you still have to work together to come up with the final product. Similar to what I do right now, even as a VP role, I'm a product manager for Zell. So, managing that product, working with my sales team, marketing team, legal team, how do you work together and bring a product out, close sales campaigns and things like that. So I think those are a couple skills that I really took into, applying every day. Also, some things like critical thinking, right? How do you challenge things, right? Kaitlin may say, hey, I have this great idea. I want to do this for Zell. My job is not to, come at her and destroy her ideas, but it's more like challenge her. We're like, hey, why do you think that's a good idea? Give me some evidence around it, things like that, right? So just like critical thinking that you learn in your classes, I think that's huge, that you can apply it to everything.
Okay, I'm going to keep building off that point because he brought up some really good ones. I think kind of where we were going, all the principles you learn, right, are transferable anywhere. So when I started, I was identifying problems we had with our products, generally coming from our customers or dealer network, and then looking and seeing what route we need to take to find a solution. So now it's a little different. Someone else identifies the problem, and then they, hand it to my group, and then we have to, the nuts and bolts of the solution. And I think something a lot of our, manufacturing based people and employers are seeing now is shortages, right? With the the supply chain issues that we're seeing here. So you can't always get what you want, and it's not generally like an A-B connection, like I replace one thing with another and everything else works fine. So it's led to a lot of, small but high urgency projects that need to get done. And, senior design, something with, Merit or whoever you are taking that with, is a great idea or example, because that's really what you're doing, in many different classes, if you will, all day. You have little problems, little projects, big projects, and you need to get buy-in from other team members, right? You need to make it relatable, personable, so people are passionate about it, responsive, and you got to be convincing, right? So you need a whole blend of things to go well to get where you want to be right at the end. So I think a lot of those, skills to get there, you learn just from high level principles, throughout your classes and coursework, right? Professionalism, technical communication and skills, and really a big one, time and project management. Those really come to the front of my mind, right? Because at the end of the day, engineers bring value, I think, by efficiently solving problems, so some sort of business problems, and which is what really we're all doing, or you're all doing in class, just on a little bit smaller scale.
Okay, I've got a couple of examples. One, way back in senior design, I was in the plane section, so plane space. I would be so frustrated when my teammate would come to me and say, like, "Hey, Kaitlin, my avionics weight value changed or the size changed," because I was like the packaging person. So I had to recalculate all my centers of gravity and things. That happens in engineering all the time. At my previous job, we were buying a liner press, and we had it in-house, and they came to us and said, "Oh, actually, we're gonna mill another 3 millimeters off this head deck, so your tool has to change." And it's like, oh my gosh, no. But it's just like that in senior design. Like, you have to be communicating, you have to be on it, so oh yeah, they're changing this, that affects my work in this way. Like, it was so frustrating in school, but that's engineering in real life. I was an officer in suite. I was the community service leader, and that like really taught me to be in engineering, to be on my stuff all the time. You had to be up on the emails, prepared for your events, prepared to speak in your meetings. And so in design reviews and FMEA, it's like that professionalism really translated well. And then also I remember being so frustrated. Senior year, junior year, so many Illinois courses, they taught us so much theory. I was like, I don't care. I want real life applications. But real life isn't going to give you a problem set, with answers in the back. Or from the person who had this class last year, real life's going to give you an issue, and you just have to use your engineering prowess to package it up into a problem that can be solved.
Yeah, that's so true. I was actually having that exact conversation with a coworker today about how sometimes when I was doing my master's, it was refreshing because I would come home from a job where there were never really right answers to something that was homework that had a right answer. And I was like, I kind of forgot how refreshing that is in school. So yeah, that is a big difference, and learning how to deal with that is super important. So I kind of next question, now that you guys are in these roles, you're not in an aerospace role, but you're now in different kinds of companies, different kind of industries, what kind of aspirations do you have as far as progressing into your career? How has that changed or not changed? What does the future look like for you guys now?
Yeah, I can take this. Yeah, so I've been through a very roller coaster ride recently, right? So I went from aerospace into software product management, and I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to be like one of those like people who work at Facebook, Google, things like that, right? I got this. And then I did the software development or software product management for 1 year, and I've already switched my roles, right? I'm doing more Zelle, working with sales and marketing, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool too. So I don't know, like right now I'm in this like, I'm just kind of exploring what's out there, what I like more. And I just know, like, if you're at a bigger company too, whether it's aerospace, non-aerospace, wherever you are too, there's a lot of different teams in there too, whether it's, engineering, sales, marketing, other like our product management or project management or, things like that. So I don't know. I mean, it's okay to be confused. Like, I mean, Kaitlin kind of mentioned that too in previously. So right now I'm just like, I like what I'm doing right now. I know I have to make a lot of impact to where Zell is within JPMorgan. And I'm gonna kind of see where that kind of leads me to next and what career opportunities come up. Because sometimes you may think, I want to be the CEO of Boeing for the longest time. I'm not there anymore. Like, right, that's totally changed, right? So it's like, what's the next, right? I don't even know if I want to be a CEO anymore. So it's like, it's like, I'm just kind of playing it as like, I'm doing more what I like now because that's helping me grow faster than, what I think I want to be. So I'm just kind of playing it day by day, but I don't know, maybe tech companies are my future. I don't know, but I'm just playing it day by day.
Hey, Anil, one quick follow-up question for you. It's interesting because I talked to a few students in the recent past that were trying to decide what engineering they wanted to be, and they wanted to go to Illinois, but they were like, I'm between aero, computer science, and electrical. And they said, when I just Google it, right, the computer science kids come out and they make the most money, and I want to work for insert big tech company name, right?
Yeah.
You've made the transition. In that particular sector, right? Software world, product development world, breaking into it from an aerospace background. Do you have any advice or what you might recommend to someone who is kind of having that, I'm in aero, but I really want to end up over here, or I'm not sure what to choose?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I've kind of thought through that too. And I guess it depends on two things. So what's more important to that person? Is it, it depends, is it money? Or is it, do they want to, they want to do something they love doing? Because no doubt about it. I mean, I was in Seattle. I saw my paycheck at Boeing versus my, my friend's paycheck at Microsoft and Amazon. And there were a lot of, zeros in between the differences, right? So you can earn a lot as a computer science student, at, Amazon, Facebook, right? I mean, starting salaries at over $150,000, no doubt about it. But at the end of the day, do you want to do something that you like doing or something that makes you a lot of money? Because that could burn you out easily too. I've thought about switching and becoming a computer science too, but I was like, man, if I code all day, it's gonna drive me crazy. I could be, making $150,000 easily, $300,000 signing bonus, stuff like that. But I'm making an airplane with a folding wing that flies, and I mean things like that. I'm going to Singapore selling airplanes. I mean, this is like a cool career. Like, who says I can work at NASA? Right. So I think just follow your passion, do what you like doing, because my salary went up quickly at Boeing too. So it's not like, you're not going to earn money in that career too. It may take a little longer time, but it's not all about the money. It's about your happiness too, where you come home to. So I think that's a big deal.
Okay, I'll take it from there then. So on our career aspirations, so I'm pretty young in my career, right? I don't have 10 years of experience like my colleagues, so I'm a little different, a little closer to probably some of you watching. So I don't think mine have changed significantly, right? I'm still kind of like what Anil was saying. I'm still feeling it out, right? You're chasing the dream every day, and you're trying to find what you like the most. And I really like the emphasis on once you're within like a large company or even a small one. There are so many doors that open in different teams and avenues and things, careers that I quite honestly didn't even know existed. You could Google the title and you probably wouldn't find any good information. But I think once you show some value and willingness to learn and change, there's a lot of different things. So like right now, I'm still nuts and bolts. I'm in the weeds, every day, looking at very specific things. And I think someday I'd probably want to get out of that. I don't know when, right? I don't know if next year I'll figure out the perfect role and run it out for the next 40 years, or it'll take me a decade or my whole life. I mean, you never really know. And a lot, depends on your willingness to move and change. I didn't want to move to either, faraway coast. I'm content where I was from and where I'm based. So maybe that limits you a little bit if you're from like a rural area or something like that. But there's, some small sacrifices that can be made to quickly change that. Once you get, kind of like going to school for the first time or moving to college for the first time, right? Everyone's new. So you gotta make, the impression you will, and run it out from there, and just kind of, every day. And I think another thing I was surprised in learning is managers are very willing to entertain different ideas you have to improve, like what you do, or to add or change and other things, basically just to make you happy and efficient, right? Because they want employees that are enjoying what they're doing, how they're doing it, and they want to improve processes and things like that. So I think that's something to keep in the back of your mind. You can always, ask and advocate, maybe just minor changes, things. Oh, I'm really passionate about these, but not so much about that. And, in my limited experience, it's worked really well for me. So that's all I've got on this one.
All right. Have my career aspirations changed? Oh, yes. When I graduated school, I figured I would be designing turbochargers, working in Creo and modeling and whatnot. But my passions are a lot closer to the ground these days. Oh golly, I wrote like a whole paragraph. I don't want to read the whole thing. I left my job for 7 years. I was there, which is kind of maybe not super weird, but kind of. A lot of people graduate college and they don't get their dream job right away, so they jump and they jump and they jump. But I did. I loved it, so I was there for 7 years. But getting married was more important to me. To marry my husband was more important than any job, and so I left that, moved here, and so now I'm working an engineering job, paying the bills, insurance. But our family goal is actually to take over his family's farm. They've got a grass-fed, pastured, no antibiotics, no hormones, kind of a farm. And so I'm really looking forward to using all the engineering skills I have, because there's a lot of machines on that farm that need attention, as well as the project management and leadership skills that I've developed as an engineer, and being able to integrate that with our family life and working. I told Laura right before we jumped on the call, we're expecting our first child next year. And as I tried to look at how do I work and be a mom, lots of women do amazing things and can balance it really well. But personally, I'm like, I don't want to leave my kid, but I don't want to quit working. So, well, if we take over the farm, I'm just going to bring the kid with me all the time. So currently, those are my aspirations. They could change again, though.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. One thing I think I'm curious about is what kind of advice you would give to students who have either been in the process this fall of applying to internships or full-time positions and maybe haven't found something at all, or maybe haven't found anything in aerospace and they're feeling discouraged, or they're just not really sure kind of where to go next. Given that you've all kind of touched different areas of engineering and aerospace in some way, what advice would you give to those people as they continue to search for jobs and as they continue to look to kind of what's next after graduation?
Yeah, I can start this off. Yeah, I would say don't give up. I mean, getting into Boeing, NASA, right? I mean, I was declined so many times, so many interviews, GE, so many, right? It just, so don't ever give up. Just keep going. You know what your value is, and just keep at it. I know it could be very challenging, and it's like, hey, I'm going to graduate. I'm going to have to start paying my student loans or whatever it is. Real life is coming. Just look around, apply everywhere. It's like how you apply for colleges too, right? You go for the reach, middle and then low. Just apply everywhere too, right? Because it's not like if I didn't work at Boeing, let's just say I worked at a mom and pop that maybe made some parts, right, for something, right? Those skills are also very handy too, because now you can put on your resume, hey, I was very hands-on. I did so many different roles than just sitting at my desk, designing something, which is what I did at Boeing, right? So it's like, so you have so many different skills, and people are, because I've been looking at the job market too, and people are willing to take risk on individuals from different industries. So they're not like, hey, Google's only looking for people coming from Facebook and things like that. I'm using tech company kind of things right now, but they're not, they're looking for people who are coming from JPMorgan, from, this startup fields, because you're coming with more different experience, more diversity. So it doesn't matter where you start off with, just keep at it and just never give up, right? I was one of those individuals who knew what I wanted to be, right? Like I said, aerospace was my life. CEO was my goal. I knew my 5 to 10 year plan. I'm not there, right? My goals change, everything changed, right? And I think as you're doing it too, just whatever path you take, as long as you're happy in your role, I think that's going to make you excel. So whether it's at a small company, big company too, and roadblocks are good too. Like whatever you learn from these experiences, it's not going to look bad on your resume, honestly. It's like, hey, I hit a roadblock and I learned from it, right? So, and people take that, they don't take that with a grain of salt. They know that, hey, you've kind of worked your way, or you know, struggled to get to where you were, or whatever it may be, right? So I don't think any of that, like, don't worry about your resume. Just, you know, try to get a job, you know, and just try to apply your skills into different industries. And then also just, I think the biggest thing I failed to do, which I should have done more, and I did this in my last year, was in network. It's not about a lot of times what you know, it's who you know too. And that's what has landed me a lot of my jobs, you know, and different places. So, you know, maybe just to discredit myself, I don't know. But, you know, it's a lot of my network that opened doors for me. So, yeah, I would say network and market yourself well. Don't sell yourself short.
Okay, moving on with this one. Yeah, I agree with what was said there, right? You got to keep your options open. You don't want to restrict yourself to a small window. You know, mechanical design at one of, you know, 3 aerospace companies in the Americas or whatever. But that's one of the great things about being an engineer, right? There's tons of different job opportunities and fields that aren't even really related that doors open for, especially when you have some experience. And I think, you know, once you get going, you know, the sky's the limit of what you want to do. Your drive, your passion, your creativity. I think I had a hard time getting through just the resume portion, right? Every time I interviewed either in person or like on a webinar like this, I received an offer. It was just breaking that bridge, right? And I think the other problem was I backed myself into too small of a corner, which I just said not to do, but I did, just because I was looking, you know, within a 40, 50-minute drive of Marengo, Illinois, which isn't great. You know, there's Rockford, that's about it for in some of the suburbs. So I think that's, you know, really important, right? You can keep your eyes open. You can always change things. You know, it's not the end of the world if you leave or you change. People do it every day. You know, you got to do what's best for you and your family and your current situation. And I think everyone's really understanding of that. The hardest thing for me professionally was when I went to change roles. I saw an opportunity I wanted, and before I applied for it, I had to tell that to my manager, who I really liked, and I still really like. And you know, that to me, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this, right? But as Anil was saying, right, you can't, you know, sell yourself short or hold yourself back for things that are out of your control, right? Because, you know, someday, you know, you might have the best boss in the world, but you might find out Monday he's going to be gone in a couple of weeks, right? Or she, and things are always changing. So, you know, there's some things you just can't, maybe if you're a real small company, you know, but, you know, large companies like, you know, Samantha, Neil, you know, myself, you know, thousands of people, you know, and, you know, each continent, basically it's, you know, there's a lot of opportunity for growth and there's a lot of change. So at the end of the day, right, I would just say, keep your options open. You know, you might be surprised. I remember one of my internships, I'd gotten a couple offers, but they all were states away. I didn't really want to move for 3 months, you know, my like junior year, the summer going into it, right? And I just kept looking local, and I got lucky as an industrial engineer. Not something I, you know, really thought I'd want to do, but it was great. You know, met a lot of great friends I still occasionally see. Learned a lot about a different part of the industry. Ironically, they use a lot of lift truck equipment, which I now design. So that was good as a competitor. So I got some insight there that I wouldn't have otherwise. But you know, you never know, right? And you know, there's too much in a job role that you'll see on a single piece of paper, you know, on a LinkedIn post or something. So I would say don't discredit things that you're not certain of. And, you know, you hear out, you know, when you're getting interviewed, you know, just, you know, you can feel out the interviewer too, right? I asked a lot of questions. Apparently that's a good thing, right? But I wanted to learn just as much as about them as they wanted to learn about me. So I think that's good. And, you know, be transparent in your, you know, 5 to 10 year plan or 1 to 3 year plan or however it's phrased, but you know, keep your eyes open and keep an eye on the job market. Right now is a great time. It seems that, you know, pretty much every industry is looking, so it's not a time to get discouraged and quit, right? It's a time to look even harder. So
All right. For the students that are looking for internships, and if you're not finding any or you're not finding the ones you want, I did a study abroad between freshman and sophomore years. It was an incredible experience. I'd never been on a plane before, before flying to South America for 6 weeks. It looks really good on your resume. It's a very good experience. You learn a lot about yourself. You develop in ways that you couldn't just on campus. So that's an idea. Or my Cummins internship after sophomore year, it wasn't like it was a job. I was a sophomore. I didn't care. I just wanted something on my resume, but that something turned into something I really liked. So don't turn something down just because it's not perfect. I think Anil and Jack both said like just getting the experience is good. And then once, let me make sure I'm still on the right question. I guess like once you're in that job, like there will be a grind, 13-hour days sometimes or whatever, like that's okay. They're not all going to be terrible. They're not all going to be good. But all of it, like you're still developing and you're still growing and learning and helping you figure out what you want to do. I'm not sure if I would recommend grad school. If you're not sure, like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I guess I'll do this. Like, that's expensive. Pay attention to your debt. Like, don't just make a willy-nilly choice like that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. One thing I actually did want to touch on, because we have a couple minutes before we're going to take questions, is grad school, because you guys have sort of switched gears now. Anil, I know you've done your MBA, so you can speak a little bit to that, but maybe the other two can kind of talk to us about their thoughts on it now of grad school in general, right? Like, what did it provide for you in your current role, if anything? And what would your advice be to someone who's maybe, looking at choosing, whether they pursue an aerospace master's or something else master's or any graduate school versus look at the workforce based on the experiences that you guys have had?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So yeah, I was confused whether I wanted to do master's in aerospace or I want to do MBA. That's how my life begins. Right? I'm confused just all the time. So yeah, I was a design engineer, right? If you don't know what a design engineer does, is they design things, they make decisions, and they bring it from piece of paper to reality. So in the process of that, you're working with cross-functional teams, you're making choices, right? Like I was making choices whether this should be aluminum, titanium, composite, was the best material. And I'm making decisions based on net present value, right? What does this cost the company, and the net present value for the company as a general? What does net present value even mean? Right? I just took a spreadsheet, plugged in numbers, and here's the result. Oh, this is higher than other. I go this route. Right. So that's why I went into MBA, because I was like, hey, this is going to make me a better design engineer. So that's why I kind of chose that route. Another thing that got me going too was, again, I wanted to be CEO. I was so set on it, right? So I was literally getting mentored by the CEO at Boeing. And I was in his office, Stan Deal, one of the alums at UIUC. I talked to him. He was there. He was CEO for another organization at the time. And he was saying, if you want to be in this office, do your MBA, not your master's in aerospace, right? So it was more of my career route. I wanted to go more management route versus technical route. That's why I chose more of the MBA, more for aerospace in particular, which led me to other places. But that was my goal, just become a better design engineer and then have that as a foundation, because you have to be technically good at an engineering company and then build that up and go to the management route. So that was my decision as for MBA.
Sam, I haven't pursued higher education, so I can't really comment on that. But Neil brings up some good points, right? Once you pass director or so, you see a lot of further degrees, and generally they're in some sort of business administration. It's something you can look at. If you're an employer, you can do over the course of several years. Generally, it's not something I've actively pursued very hard, but I'm pretty young in my career, so maybe Kaitlin has a little better insight on that.
I had forgotten about it, Jack, but thank you for reminding me. So my previous company, they would help you pay for your master's. There was a set amount, just like every year. They'd write you a check, but they'd write the school check. So if you really, really want to, like, maybe just hold on a minute. Maybe your new job will pay for it. And there's probably a rule, you have to remain so long after you complete the program. I have a friend that is, she's just a boss. She's a really good engineer. She became a team leader very early in her career. She was picked. They said, we're going to develop you to be a leader. We're going to pay for your MBA. So like, sometimes that happens, not all companies. So don't just assume, but that way it was something for their job and not just, oh, well, I guess I will. You know what I mean? Like usually if you're headed towards like, oh, research, well, then you're going for a PhD and you're not going for industry right away anyway. But that's all I've got. So, oh, but also if you're going to like think like, do I want to get married? Do I want to have a family? Starting a family, it's going to get real busy around here. It's going to be a lot harder to do grad school. So like, consider that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you guys. So I think we can open it up to questions if there are any from folks online for either someone in particular or just to the group. You can either type them in the chat or unmute and say them.
Hi, thank you for sharing your experiences. I kind of know how you feel. I did my bachelor's in industrial and now I am doing my master's in aerospace. So my question is a general one. So when you decided to change careers, how did the industry respond to you? Basically, if you go to an interview for a finance or a software position and they look at your resume and see that you did your courses, undergrad courses in aerospace engineering, what were the questions and reactions that you faced?
Oh yeah, that's a good one. That was tough, right? I mean, when you've been in the industry for 8.5 years and you're just switching all of a sudden and like literally pivoting to a whole new like finance, software, things like that. But it was more of, I had to tailor my resume a lot. And my goal was this, right? I need an interview and then I can sell myself after that, right? So how do I get an interview first? A lot, have a strong network who people. Second was, how do I take all my skills I know from aerospace and translate them into software product management? So just if you have a certain career path or role that you're looking for, Google it, see what roles they're looking for. I read a lot of books on product management. I became certified as product manager and things like that. And then I also take things like, hey, I designed this part from A to Z. If you say I designed something, a hardware, they may be like, ooh, like I don't know, like how are you gonna be able to do software? So maybe take the hardware word out and say, work with a cross-functional team to take, design from an idea to, beginning inception to, an actual product, things like that. So look at those buzzwords that, that industry and those people look for and just apply them to your resume. Because, if you're really passionate and you really know what you want to do in this new role, when you get your interview, they'll see that motivation in you and they'll take a risk on you. So that's not the tough part. It's just getting in the door, getting that first round of interviews and into your second, third, fourth rounds, just selling yourself at that point. But yeah, just know, engulf yourself in that industry, tailor your resume to it, learn the buzzwords, get through the systematic way of processing your resume, make connections to make that process a little easier too, and just when you get that interview, just kill it. Just like there's so many people like myself, others that you may know of who are in that industry and they could help and guide you and help you in that process too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had to do a lot of explaining when I went to move to the mechanical, engineer role of why I studied aerospace if I'm doing mechanical, right? And it was kind of surprising to me, right? But I think a lot of people are, management and such is a little different in mindset maybe. And they didn't, when they went through school, it wasn't like us where it's like you're in cross-listed courses, for most of junior and senior year. But I think Anil brought up a really good point. Is just you can't be afraid to bet on yourself, right? Because you know exactly what the employer wants, right? They put it on their job application. So you just need to, kind of tailor it to that. And it's not really, it's unfortunate you have to change things, but it's not really dishonesty, right? You're just selecting small little pieces that they want to see. And the 1 minute they're looking at your resume or whatever, you're not, shifting things, but just, you know what they're looking for and you know what you're looking to provide. So you got to make those two things match.
So my first interview just to get to Cummins, it was only about skills. I was very fortunate and learned Pro E Wildfire back when I was in high school, which immediately translates to Creo Parametric, the modeling software. So bam, like that got me my first internship. So from there was a question of like aerospace. It was, oh, what projects have you done? What can you do? Yeah.
Any other questions from the group?
Hey, yeah, I had a question. So, am I audible? Hello?
Yep.
Yeah, hi. I had a question for like getting back into the industry. So I came here like having worked with Boeing for almost 3.5 years, but that was back in India. And after coming here, I've realized like it is considerably tough to get back into the aerospace industry sector, even after like working for Boeing. So what are the different options of like if you're like really passionate to join back the firm, as well as like other aerospace companies, given we're like international students? What are the options for us here?
Yeah. Do you know your previous managers, at Boeing and like other ones, everyone that you worked with? I don't know if you've reached out to them or not, but just reaching out to them saying, hey, I'm interested. They may or may not work there anymore, but maybe they can guide you somewhere, that who they are hiring. So I would say first, if you're really passionate, you're gonna enter back into Boeing, because that's where you came from. Network with your old networks within there and try to get a foot in the door. And other thing would be too is if you have that gap in your resume, I don't know what I'm sure like a career counselor can help in this too, but like taking gaps is not seen as a bad thing anymore, right? Whether it's for maternity leave, paternity leave, anything, right? If as long as you explain that gap, and they'll ask you, hey, you haven't worked for 3 years, whatever. What happened there? Be ready to explain yourself, right? And that's totally fine. And maybe you could, I don't know if you could put something in your resume that kind of helps with that. The career counselor would know better what new trends are. But I would say, yeah, start networking with people and just apply. And if that's the same industry on an intern, look at like the roles and see what the keywords are. And someone you may know who already works there through LinkedIn and see if they maybe would be willing to refer you. I know Boeing has a new referral process too, and it's a little more different now. So processes change, things change, but reach out. And Boeing has gone through ups and downs, right? It went through a pretty big down when I was leaving. So just because you aren't getting to Boeing doesn't mean that you're not qualified, right? It just maybe like, hey, they don't have budget. It's end of the year, right? Hiring is almost freezing at the moment, right? So for us to make hiring choices right now, it's more kind of on pause, but don't let that discourage you. Some companies are, coming in like, hey, we have to start the year off with, a lot of employees and things like that. So there's no straight advice, right? It's just explain on your resume what it is, explain and be ready to explain in person. And if that company is not willing to take a risk on you because of that, maybe it's not the company you even want to be at, right? Maybe they don't respect you for who you are, or things like that. So just take that into consideration too. But yeah, I mean, it's a popular trend now. People take a year off to do things, do our own company. They may fail, they may not, and then come back into the industry. So just network and just try to do that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hi there. My name is Manuel. I currently work for Stanford Healthcare and their medical software that they use for the hospital. And my question for all of you is, do you ever find that you need to keep yourselves refreshed on any skills that you learned within engineering, whether it be theory or like CAD or something else? And how do you go about doing that? Or be more motivated to do that.
Yeah, Kaitlin or Jack, I can quickly say my piece. I think like you brought up one, like CAD, right? I feel like, Kaitlin mentioned this. So if you do Creo to something else, I mean, I learned one software in one of the aerospace classes, but they're directly, applicable to other software. It's like riding a bike. You sometimes don't forget. But I did feel like, for analytical skills, because I was a design engineer, more designing than doing more analysis of the pieces. I felt like I was lacking some of that, I was at Boeing. So I personally was more focused on that too, so that I could be smarter. And when I say, hey, this is what the part looks like, and this is how it functions, here are the forces to it, here's how it behaves. I used to just partner with my analysis engineer a lot and make sure that, I understood everything was happening. I even try to help and do some of their work for them too, just to keep up to that skill, because there's always new methodologies coming out, how you, transformational matrices, things like that, right? You just forget over time. So just, continuously doing that, it just kind of helps. So for me, it was more keeping up with the analytical skills.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting earlier that Kaitlin mentioned, Creo parametric. Over the last week, I've actually been working on getting up to speed there, right? Because we used NX 10 and then 12 at UI. And then my current employer uses Ideas, which I guess is actually like the grandfather to NX, very old. And then also Creo. And, it's not Dr. Woodard in a lab with you kind of showing you along and you're doing it. It's here's a big list of problems and examples, and you just kind of truck along until you're done. And it is interesting after I guess a year and a half off of intensive CAD. I mean, my only struggle is when things are named differently than what I expect them to be, finding them. But that's just something that comes with it. And then the other side, I think there's a lot of opportunity for training and growth, technical training. I spent the last week in Houston at one of our other facilities on like a failure analysis class offered by Caterpillar, the heavy equipment company that we're, we make their forklifts, right? So I think it, on one hand, you're going to have to look back at things, and then, and evolve, especially as time goes on. I find myself reading things I don't use all the time. You stay on all your notes and you have them with you. And, the other good thing, right, is you're not taking a test or something. You have all the resources in the world. So you can go home and you can get those resources. You can look around and find them. As Neil was saying, it's, it may not be an exact same thing, but there's a pretty good relationship between what you did in school and, what you'll do in industry, even if you're, using, Creo or SolidWorks or something weird, not exactly what you're, tailored to using at school.
Manuel, I had a question. Did you mean like if you're taking a break from industry and then coming back, or if something is new and introduced?
I think it's more so like, for example, since I've worked in software my entire time since graduating from UIUC, I've taken some time to like occasionally study like some of the theory of like aerodynamics, and once in a while try to do some more CAD work. And sometimes that goes to the wayside for me. And I was wondering if, I know some of those skills are things that all of you would probably use regularly, but is there ever a time that you have to like refresh yourself on any of that kind of stuff, like on the side of work?
Yeah, okay. And actually, some of this is my advice and some I'm stealing from Karen Chang, who spoke at a conference recently. She talked about having like a technical portfolio to remind yourself of all the things you do know, like, no, I do know this skill, or I do know this project. So that if you're trying later to go from software back into aerospace, like remind yourself, okay, yeah, that is how that works. And she openly said like, oh yeah, I watch Khan Academy all the time. Like that's what she used to brush up on, I don't know, eigenvalues or matrix math for some interview she's going to have. So have I done it? No. But as I approach like maternity leave, it's okay, am I going to take my 12 weeks? Am I going to take a year? What do I need to do so I can go back? Not sure if that's helpful. Sorry.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Courtney, I know we're kind of right up against the time. I'm willing to bet that probably all three of our speakers today would be willing to share contact info, but we can confirm with them. So if people do have questions or they think about stuff or want to try to connect with them, they could, shoot them an email or LinkedIn message offline. Is that something that you can provide people somewhere online, or how could they get that information?
So yeah, if anybody has further questions, if you just want to email me, and then I can connect you with whoever you wanted to ask the question of, or if it was all three, I can connect you that way. So if everyone will just email me, that should work. All right, so I want to thank our panelists and Samantha for joining us tonight, and thank you especially to our panelists for sharing your experiences with us and the advice for students. And thank you all to those who joined us. Thank you all for spending a little time with us this evening. Our next session of Illini Aero Connections will take place in February, and we're going to be covering a day in the life of an engineer. And so we're working to confirm our guests, our panelists for that, and we will hopefully be able to give students a look at what it really looks like to be an engineer and not be in the classroom anymore. So thank you again for joining us, everyone. We hope to see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.